In the art room, the whole class watches excitedly as Mona strikes different poses for Kuroiwa to draw. But him? He pretends not to see her at all. He sits there, firm and focused, clinging to his beliefs to keep any impure thoughts away. Mona, of course, is annoyed. How is he still ignoring her? Kuroiwa asks her to strike a less provocative pose. But Mona, always sharp, tells him he should take advantage of this rare opportunity. After all, she's hardly ever a model, and she's willing to pose however he wants. She even jokes that she could pose just as she came into the world, but the world's just a joke. Still, she's convinced that today is the day he'll finally notice her. The art project requires them to draw each other, so Mona has danger and tries to focus on the Virgin of Guadalupe to keep his mind pure. But when Mona changes her pose, his blood pressure spikes. Desperate, he enters monk-level meditation mode to stop himself from thinking anything inappropriate. The activity begins, and Kuroiwa is fully fanned how he can stay so calm with her posing right in front of him. At the same time, another classmate keeps staring at Mona. Her model notices and scolds her, "Focus on your own drawing instead of looking at other more than Kuroiwa is." Curious, she asks him, "What part are you drawing now?" He replies, "Your neck." Boom! Heat rushes through Mona. It feels like he's devouring her with his eyes. She can't take it anymore and runs out of the room, locking herself in the bathroom. Sitting there, she thinks, that's exactly how he should be looking at me all the time. Meanwhile, back in the classroom, everyone gathers around Kuroiwa's drawing. It's impressively detailed. They ask him what he plans to do with it, and just as his mind notices that same classmate from art class spying on her. At first, she doesn't care, but then she realizes the girl isn't watching her. She's watching Kuroiwa. Panic mode activated. After all this effort, there's no way she's letting someone else swoop in and take him. "Oh no, sweetheart. I've been working on this guy for way too long. There's no way I'm losing now." She knows Kuroiwa still hasn't fallen for her charms, which means there's only one thing left to do. It's time to take action. Now's the moment. Mona knows a different side of herself and see if that finally makes him fall for her. The other students who are always showering her with praise are shocked by this new vibe, and they don't even complain about her breaking the library rules by drinking tea inside. Mona smirks. This is the perfect moment to activate my genius mode. The atmosphere couldn't be better. She's sure that this time, Kuroiwa will finally fall at her feet. Kuroiwa glances at her, and before he can stop himself, thinks, wow, she actually looks good in glasses. But he quickly looks away to avoid any dangerous thoughts. Mona notices, and she acts fast. She lightly brushes her foot against his leg, sending a shiver down his spine. "Our Father, who art in heaven, protect me," Kuroiwa prays, trying to keep his focus. Mona knows she almost got him, so, with a sweet look, she asks, "What do you think of me?" Kuroiwa suddenly stands up. That's enough. She failed. Again. Meanwhile, Haruno watches the whole scene like she's at the movies, completely fascinated. Mona notices something. Haruno is totally smitten with Kuroiwa. Great! As if winning over this stubborn guy wasn't hard enough. Now she has a rival. Mona starts spying on Haruno to figure out what kind of girl she is. And what does she find? Haruno, watering the school's flower 7 though nobody asked her to. Teacher's pet, Mona thinks. Then, she sees Haruno in class, reading quietly and erasing the chalkboard even though it's not her job. Oh no. Not only is she pretty, but she's an angel too. Mona realizes she's at a huge disadvantage. In the locker room, she decides to investigate further. She sneaks a peek and notices that Haruno has a all shy, says she's embarrassed to be looked at like that. Unlike Mona, Haruno is modest. That's the last straw. Mona storms out to the school track and starts running, trying to burn off her frustration. Back in the classroom, Mona admits to herself, Haruno is way sweeter and more delicate than she is. And if that's the kind of girl Kuroiwa likes, then she's doomed. But then something happens. A boy walks up to Mona and hands her a book she had asked for. She smiles, thanks him, and speaks to him in such a soft and affectionate way that the poor guy pranked him with compliments. I've never even told him I like him. And just like that, a new idea is born. On the school rooftop, Kuroiwa is relaxing, feeling the wind on his face, when out of nowhere a handkerchief flies toward him. He catches it midair, and then Mona appears, smiling. Thanks for catching my handkerchief. She pretends to be suppressed cute, charming. Now all she has to do is start a conversation, and before he realizes it, he'll be completely in love with her. I love coming here to relax too, Mona says, flipping her hair and giving him a look full of meaning. Kuroiwa just hands back the handkerchief, trying not to fall into her trap. Mona is determined. She wants to tell Kuroiwa how much she likes him, but when the moment comes, instead of confessing her love, what comes out of her mouth? I think you're disgusting. Kuroiwa, utterly confused, just says, I swear I didn't look under your skirt. Mona decides that's a problem for later. Right now, time is ticking, and she can't lose this battle to Haruno. The next day, the school festival committed. Oh, what a shame. Haruno picks hers first selected. Mona picks her second selected. Great. Now she'll have to spend days working side by side with her rival. Haruno always she's escaping immigration. Show me that phone right now, Mona yells. Haruno doesn't answer. If you don't show me, I'll hate you. Haruno suddenly stomps. She turns to Mona, eyes filled with fear, for the attack anyway. She lunges, tackles Haruno, and the phone flies through the air. She catches it, and she is shocked. Haruno's wallpaper is her ceremony. Mona, who was ready to destroy Haruno, now has no idea how to react. Haruno, completely flustered, confesses that she's always thought Mona was amazing. She loved how she made everyone smile and wanted to be able to see her all the time. So she started taking a few pictures of her. But don't worry, nothing weird, just around 300 photos. Mona, still in shock, realizes Haruno wasn't following Kuroiwa. She was following her. Haruno tries to explain, saying she was going to change her wallpaper before Mona saw it so she wouldn't think she was weird. But well, too late for that. Mona laughs, pulls Haruno into a hug, and assures her it's not weird. Oh, but I think it is. Seriously, don't take photos of people without permission. That's creepy. Life tip. During the hug, Mona suddenly remembers while running. She accidentally confessed that she likes Kuroiwa. Crap. Thinking fast, she blurts out an excuse. Oh, I was talking about a fish. Yeah, a fish named Kuroiwa. My pet fish. Haruno narrows her eyes. Really? A fish? Yes, a very special little fish. The problem? Haruno has 300 photos of Mona and has noticed how much she's changed since Kuroiwa arrived. So, this excuse is absolute garbage. But instead of calling her out, Haruno smiles and says, if you need help winning him over, I'm here for you. Mona rolls her eyes. How annoying when someone doesn't listen to what you're saying. Oh, and if you read this far, comment Exquisito down below. Thanks a million. See you in the next video. Mona is in the room, making a list of what's missing for the project, when out of nowhere, Haruno shows up to chat, and honestly, ever since what happened, she's been way more friendly than before. Then she casually drops, my sister is in the theater club and agreed to lend us some costumes for the festival. Mona tries to pay attention, but she gets distracted watching Kuroiwa, who's totally focused on assembling a flower. Haruno, with that mischievous grin, teases, good luck with the boy, huh? Mona, of course, tries to deny it, but it's useless. Haruno has already figured out that she's into Kuroiwa, and she knows everything, even Mona's so-called secret intentions. Haha. Meanwhile, Kuroiwa can feel someone staring at him, but he just keeps working on the flower. Mona and Haruno head to the theater hall to check out the costumes, and wow, there's a whole variety. Haruno even suggests, why don't you try on the maid outfit? Mona immediately sees through her plan Haruno just wants to see her in something provocative. So she fires back, no way, you're crazy. If you want, you can try it on after I leave. Haruno pushes a little more, but eventually gives up. Then she changes the subject and asks, have you heard about the school legend? Mona looks clueless, so Haruno starts explaining. It's about the Path of Fate, which happens during the festival. Some call it the Bridge of Love. Look out the window, see that bridge between the buildings. They say that if you hold hands with someone you like there during the festival, you'll fall in love forever. And she adds, that's why so many new couples pop up after the festival. You should try it with Kuroiwa, huh? Mona gets annoyed. Oh, cut it out, Haruno. Just then, another girl walks into the hall and calls Haruno over for a private chat about the costumes. Mona is left alone, deep in thought. She starts reflecting, if I keep acting all giddy over a guy, my queen bee reputation is done for. The solution? Make Kuroiwa fall for her instead, and the school festival is the perfect chance. She starts plotting, I'll use these disguises to win him over. She scans the options. There's the maid outfit, a ghost costume, a police uniform with a miniskirt. Yes, a miniskirt, and even a butler suit, in case he's into different tastes. And then there's the secret weapon, the bunny outfit. But when she sees it, she realizes it's way too bold. Even for her. Better leave that one aside, she thinks, and then wonders, why the hell does the theater club even have something like this? What do they use it for? And then bam, Kuroiwa suddenly enters the hall. No knocking, no warning. He sees Mona with all those costumes and asks, what are you doing dressed like that? Flustered, she stammers, I'm just trying them on for the festival. Kuroiwa starts picking up some papers they needed when Mona hears footsteps approaching, and then panic. If they see me like this, they'll think I dressed up just to be alone with him. Without thinking, she grabs Kuroiwa, and the two of them hide inside a closet. The problem? It's a Tight squeeze, really tight. Kuroiwa can feel Mona pressed up against him, and, well, you can imagine. Meanwhile, Haruno walks into the hall, looking around. Where's Mona? She wonders. And there they are, crammed inside, stuck in a situation more awkward than a soap opera scene. Haha. So Haruno starts gathering the papers from the floor, and Mona knows they have to stay hidden until she leaves. But inside the closet, things are tight. She's so close to Kuroiwa that she's afraid he'll hear her heart pounding like a drum. Meanwhile, of course, the guy is too busy feeling other things. Mona tries to put as much distance between them as possible, while Kuroiwa mentally recites every saint he knows. Mona can feel Kuroiwa's warm breath, and she's already thinking she won't last much longer. Luckily, someone calls Haruno again, and she leaves the hall. Finally, they can get out of that closet. Mona even feels bad for dragging Kuroiwa into that situation, but then she remembers she used the secret weapon, that bunny outfit, and not only did he see it, but he also enjoyed the view for several minutes. She looks at him to check his reaction, and Kuroiwa just stands there, distant and relieved to have escaped that awkward situation. Mona glances at herself in the mirror and admits, yeah, this outfit really is pretty bold. That must have been uncomfortable for him. But surprise! Kuroiwa notices she looks a little unsettled, and to lighten the mood, he casually says, you look good, but yeah, you're showing a bit too much. Then he quietly slips away, leaving Mona completely flustered. She gets annoyed, thinking, wait, I wasn't supposed to be the one falling for him, he was. Meanwhile, Kuroiwa is walking through the hallways, regretting what he just did. He feels guilty for complimenting her, and is already planning his repentance. 100 Our Fathers and 50 Hail Marys. The guy seriously feels like the biggest sinner in school. The next day, Mona arrives at school and sits next to Kuroiwa. She's unsure how things will be between them after that compliment. Did he finally fall into her trap? She greets him cheerfully, but Kuroiwa just gives her a grumpy look, like someone stole his last snack. She's like, what the hell was that? The festival day arrives, and Mona's group sets up a bunny-themed cafe. The waitresses wear bunny ears, and, well, that's about as creative as they got. But surprisingly, the students love it. Everyone is stopping by to see Mona, who looks absolutely adorable. Even Sahim, a girl who's at the cafe, sticks around despite her friends insisting they go somewhere else. They tell her, the person you're waiting for is in the kitchen, so there's no point staying here. And they're right. Kuroiwa is back there, completely focused, preparing the food. But of course, the kitchen guy's asterisk didn't asterisk at bunny ears. Seriously, the festival's theme execution is kind of half-baked. Then, it's finally Mona's break time, and she sees the perfect opportunity. She walks up to Kuroiwa and says, hey, want to take a break with me? He responds with his usual serious face, I don't need a break. I actually work. Mona insists, reminding him that he's been there for hours and must be hungry. To prove he's fine, he takes a bite of the food he's preparing and says, there, hunger solved. Mona is frustrated. She thought she was making progress, but Kuroiwa is only pulling away more and more. She thinks, asterisk, he's probably embarrassed about what he said, but I'm not letting that stop me, asterisk. And so, the saga continues. Oh, you're gonna love this story. So picture this, everyone's in the festival spirit, right? And of course, there's that tradition of trying to catch your crush. Haruno, who never misses out on anything, decides to join the fun. But she has a unique plan. She grabs Kuroiwa, the guy, who's always serious about work sticks, a pair of bunny ears on him, and, with zero shame, orders him to go out with Mona to hand out flyers and attract more people to the event. Kuroiwa tries to resist, but Haruno, being the boss, gives a firm order. You're going, and that's final. Mona, of course, thanks her, and Haruno even throws in a cheeky good luck with a smirk. And just like that, off go Mona and Kuroiwa, wandering through the school corridors. Mona is keeping an eye on everything, trying to find something that might catch Kuroiwa's attention. That's when they pass by a haunted house, and wow, it's well done. Mona almost jumps in fright and tries to steer Kuroiwa away, but he's fascinated by it. A bit uneasy, she asks if he wants to go in, secretly praying he'll say no. But Kuroiwa, even though he tries to play it cool, is dying to check it out. Mona thinks, well, if they tested it before, it can't be that scary, right? Asterisk. And so, in they go. At first, everything seems pretty tame, until bam, a realistic zombie jumps out of nowhere, nearly giving Mona a heart attack. She has to admit, it scared the hell out of her, but she's already planning her revenge once she finds out who was behind it. Kuroiwa, concerned, turns back to check on her, and Mona, totally embarrassed, quickly makes up an excuse, saying the scream came from another girl. You know how it is, nobody wants to look weak in front of their crush. They keep walking, and Mona is trying to keep her cool, but then another zombie appears. This time, she manages to hold back her reaction, but Kuroiwa was too busy admiring the haunted house's details to even notice. He even mentions that it reminds him of his hometown. Meanwhile, Mona is surprised to see him having so much fun, and then the unexpected happens. Mona's skirt gets caught on a wooden tombstone. She tries to pull it free but has no luck. When she asks Kuroiwa for help, she realizes he's so focused on the scenery that he hasn't even noticed what's going on. When he finally does, the situation turns even more embarrassing. Her skirt is hiked up, leaving very little to the imagination. Completely mortified, Mona manages to free herself and dashes out, the tombstone still stuck to her. Meanwhile, back at the Bunny Cafe, Haruno is burning everything in the kitchen because she's too distracted, wondering how Mona and Kuroiwa's date is going. Back at the haunted house, Kuroiwa finally removes the tombstone and even hands it back to the zombie, apologizing for the mishap. The zombie, totally chill, just shrugs and says, "Don't worry, man, you've got a hottie with you." Mona, still flustered, decides she's not, letting Kuroiwa pick the next place. She drags him off to get some crepes, seizing the chance to get closer to him. When she gets a little cream on her face, she asks him to wipe it off for Herbert Kuroiwa, ever the shy one, awkwardly dodges. And to make things worse, a bird swoops out of nowhere and steals Mona's whipped cream. Kuroiwa, not wanting to share his own, quickly scarfs his down before she can even ask. Oh. Then they head to the concert, but Mona is struggling to see the stage. And what happens next? Well, one thing's for sure, she's not giving up on winning over Kuroiwa that easily. All excited, Mona asks Kuroiwa to carry her on his shoulders, except there's a small problem. Wasn't Kuroiwa. It was a random guy who just looked like him. After the concert, they go to a balloon animal making activity. Mona makes a little balloon dog and comes up with cute ideas, uses it to give Kuroiwa a tiny kiss on the cheek. But then she thinks, I should make it even cuter, and decides to draw a little face on it. And then bam! The balloon dog pops right in her face. Meanwhile, Kuroiwa admires his own balloon with pride. Damn, this actually turned out awesome. Mona, she's at peak frustration. The whole day has been a disaster, nothing has gone right. And worst of all, zero progress with her crush. Time is running out, there's only an hour left of the festival land. She has no idea what to do anymore. That's when she looks around and spots the famous Bridge of Love, packed with couples. Maybe this is her last chance. Meanwhile, back at the Bunny Cafe, chaos has taken over the kitchen. No one can get a single dish right, and Ensagi, completely out of patience, throws in the towel. You know what? I'm done. And just like that, she heads back to the club. Moana looks around and is shocked. Every couple on the bridge is already holding hands, and, to her surprise, a boy nearby watches Medaka with a frown, trying to figure out who he is. But after thinking for a moment, he comes to an obvious conclusion. Medaka must be Moana's boyfriend. After all, why else would they be together on the love bridge? This reminds Moana of all the times Haruno teased her about liking Medaka, and how she always denied it with all her might. Soon, the realization spreads. And now all the other students believe that Moana and Medaka are dating. Medaka suggests they go back to the classroom, but Moana, always quick-witted, has another idea, turning the misunderstanding into an opportunity. Instead of running away, she decides to use the situation to promote the cafe. That way, they could attract more couples while also dispelling the rumors. And it actually works. Before long, the curious onlookers realize they are just advertising the cafe and drop the idea of a romance between them. At that moment, Moana explains the Love Bridge legend to Medaka and, in a playful gesture, lightly touches his hand just to see his reaction. Medaka, not one to be fooled, quickly pulls away and heads back to the classroom alone. But Moana isn't one to give up so easily. She pretends to trip and falls on purpose, extending her hand for him to help her up a perfect trap to force him into holding her hand. However, Medaka, as sharp as ever, avoids the trick and lifts her up by the arms instead, skillfully dodging the legend's grasp. A true master at avoiding superstitions. Still, Moana refuses to back down and chases after him, insisting that it's too early to return to the classroom. She tries to convince him to go back to the bridge, but before she can, two classmates appear, urgently asking them to return to the cafe. Their marketing strategy worked too well now. The couples who cross the bridge are flooding the place. With no other choice, Moana returns to the cafe. At the end of the cultural festival, she realizes she lost her chance to drag Medaka to the love bridge. Frustrated, she decides to leave it for another day and heads home, looking dejected. Haruno, of course, notices everything, Seeing that Moana made no progress with Medaka, she decides to give her a little push. With a mischievous smile, she assigns them one last task, cleaning up the cafe together. Moana, drained of energy, just lowers her gaze and focuses on the work. Is it still worth pursuing Medaka? Maybe, just maybe, Haruno has given her another chance. Medaka fell into complete silence, leaving Mona feeling awkward. To break the strange atmosphere, she tried to start a conversation. So, did you have fun at the festival? But he remained silent. That's when it hit her what a clueless question. After everything that went wrong, it was obvious his experience wasn't anything great. Remembering her last failed attempt when she tried to hold his hand and didn't even manage, that Mona felt discouraged. At that moment of distraction, she bumped into a stacked box, which began to tip over right onto her. "Watch out!" Medaka reacted quickly, grabbing the box before it could fall on her. But in the process, he grabbed her hand, and guess where they were? Right in the Love Bridge area. According to the legend, any couple that held hands there during the cultural festival was destined to love each other forever. Medaka realized what he had done and widened his eyes, but the next second, he let out a relieved sigh. The festival is already over, so it doesn't count. Even though she knew he was right, Mona felt her face heat up. Why was she blushing like this? Not understanding her own feelings, he watched as Medaka began arranging the boxes. Then, out of nowhere, he finally answered the question she had asked earlier. "Yes, I had a lot of fun. It was my first time participating in something like this, and I got to do a lot of things." The next day, upon arriving at school, Haruno noticed something unusual. Lots of couples walking around holding hands. "So the legend is real," she murmured, surprised. Mona, who also noticed the phenomenon, couldn't help but agree. And of course, Haruno wasted no time. "And you? How did it go at the Love Bridge with Medaka?" Mona froze. What could she say? She had nothing concrete to report. So, as an expert in dodging embarrassing questions, she looked up at the sky and blurted out, "Wow, the weather's really nice today, huh?" Haruno just raised an eyebrow, immediately understanding everything. But before she could press further, Medaka walked past them. Mona's heart sped up. When he looked in her direction, her first instinct was to hide. But then she remembered all her efforts from the previous night and decided she wouldn't run away anymore. Gathering her courage, she greeted him. Soon after, they headed to class together, accompanied by two friends. During the conversation, one of the boys suggested, "How about we go bowling after class to celebrate the end of the festival?" Mona loved the idea, and so did Haruno. At the bowling alley, Mona showed she had a knack for the game. She nailed a perfect strike on her first try. Excited, she turned to Medaka to see if he had watched her play. Then, she went around, celebrating with her friends, high-fiving everyone until she reached Medaka. When it was time to touch his hand, he froze. Instantly, his mind was flooded with the memory of when he accidentally held her hand the night before. Sensing the awkwardness, Mona quickly covered it up. My shoelace snapped. I need to go change it." And she ran off. As she walked away, Medaka stood there, processing everything. His heart was pounding. He had never held a girl's hand before, at least not like that. And now, he found himself wondering what it would be like. "No, stop it," he scolded himself. He had enrolled in a co-ed school precisely to train his mind to stay pure, free from distractions. When Mona returned, she sat next to him and saw him drinking soda. "Ugh, I'm so thirsty. Can I have a sip?" Medaka's eyes widened. He had already put his mouth on the bottle. Mona took the bottle but hesitated. She realized it too. Her face grew hot, but she tried to act natural. "It's nothing. Don't overthink it," she repeated to herself. But as she brought the bottle closer to her lips, Medaka grew increasingly tense, watching the scene as if it were some grand event. Finally, she took a sip and then looked at him with a mischievous smile. "Congrats, Medaka. We just had an indirect kiss." He choked on the spot. Wanting to tease Medaka, Mona handed the bottle back with a mischievous smile, waiting to see if he would drink from it after her, as if nothing had happened. But Medaka? Oh, he was on a whole other level of mental discipline. With a serious expression, he took the bottle, stared at it for a second, and simply gave up. "I'm not drinking this anymore. You can have the rest." Then he walked away, like he had just won a spiritual battle. Mona, on the other hand, stood there, holding the bottle and blinking in confusion. So basically, I'm Sin in human form, is that it? Meanwhile, Medaka returned to the bowling alley, relieved that he had escaped that temptation. But the tension was still in the air, and when he threw the ball, total failure. Not a single pin fell, a complete disaster. The next day, Mona arrived at school wearing her winter uniform, and no exaggeration, every single student stopped to look. "You look amazing in that uniform," one of them complimented. "You should wear it all the time," said another. Mona, feeling shy, thanked them for the compliments, but her focus was elsewhere. Medaka still hadn't switched to his winter sweater. Wasting no time, she went up to him. "You should wear the sweater too, you know? It's way more stylish." And to emphasize her point, she struck an adorable adorable pose, tucking her hands into the sleeves and blinking her eyes in a way that mentally knocked out half the boys in the room. But Medaka? Oh, he was a true monk. I don't feel cold, so I don't see the need. Mona pouted and stomped back to her seat, annoyed. Meanwhile, Medaka received a message from Sho asking to talk in private. As soon as they met, Sho got straight to the point. Dude, how long are you going to keep treating Mona like this? Medaka tried to explain, once again talking about his responsibilities as the heir of a shrine. But before he could continue, Sho cut him off. Cut the crap. It's simple. Don't fall for her. Fine. But that doesn't mean you have to treat her like garbage. Medaka fell silent. Sho crossed his arms and continued. Look, she really likes you, and not just anyone would put up with the way you treat her and still stick around. Beside him, Yuzuru sighed. You can talk to girls without breaking your religion, Medaka. And if your faith preaches being a good person, maybe you should start by returning Mona's kindness. Medaka looked thoughtful. Meanwhile, Zoro, who had just been a spectator until now, couldn't hold back. Honestly, you're an idiot. Do you really think the best solution is to act like some emotionless robot every time she gets close to you? He paused, scratching his head. Okay, I'll admit that sometimes she goes a bit overboard. Maybe taking off her clothes isn't the best way to interact with someone. But you're not helping either, are you? Sho tried to push Zoro to say more, but he shook his head. I'm not interested in collecting more rivals. This conversation has already gone too far. And with that, the meeting was over. Medaka returned to class, but before he could get there, Haruno stopped him. Explain something to me, she began, arms crossed. Why are you so rude to Mona? He didn't answer. She does so much for you, and you act like she doesn't even exist. Don't you think that's a little ungrateful? Medaka took a deep breath, but said nothing. Haruno narrowed her eyes. You can run from this conversation now, but sooner or later, you're going to have to face your own feelings. And with that, she turned and walked away, leaving Medaka alone, still unsure how to deal with everything. While the discussion went on, all the boys in the classroom stood off to the side, just watching the tense atmosphere. Within seconds, they were already whispering among themselves, this is definitely a lover's quarrel. Haruno, hearing that, rolled her eyes and decided to shut the topic down immediately. Having no patience for gossip, she ran back to the classroom. Medaka stood there, still processing the argument, until his gaze landed on Mona. She was helping the teacher carry some papers to the faculty office without anyone even asking her to. And at that moment, something clicked. Mona was really just a good girl. The next day, Medaka still had that thought in mind when he noticed that Mona had forgotten to bring her book. Without thinking too much, he called out to her. Want to share mine? Mona's eyes lit up instantly. Of course. Without hesitation, she pulled her desk closer way too fast. Medaka, the clueless guy that he was, got startled as if he had just seen a flying cockroach and, in a completely unnecessary reflex, pushed his own desk away. The silence in the room was deafening. Sho and Yuzuru, who had witnessed everything from a distance, started cursing at him in exaggerated miming, gesturing like they wanted to throw a slipper at his face. Realizing the mess he had just made, Medaka tried to fix it immediately. Sorry, you moved too fast. You startled me, that's all. And, with a bit of hesitation, he pulled her desk back toward his. In the background, Sho, Yuzuru, and Haruno let out a collective sigh of relief, as if he had just prevented a world war. Mona, on the other hand, didn't look upset at all. Quite the opposite. She smiled so brightly that Haruno immediately pulled out her phone to snap a picture. This is gold, she murmured, saving the photo with a smirk. And as for Medaka, well, at least he had decided he wouldn't treat Mona badly anymore. He was still clinging to his whole I can't fall in love mindset, but at the very least, he had started being kinder to her. That's progress, right? Now, whether he keeps running from her like a rom-com protagonist, or finally realizes what he feels, that's something we'll find out in part 5. So leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let's hope this guy gets some decent character development. The next morning, Mona wakes up and takes a quick peek out the window. Gray sky, light rain, a somewhat melancholic day. She feels a wave of gloom coming over her, but she doesn't let it bring her down. She gets ready and heads to school, even though the weather isn't cooperating. On the way, something shifts. She decides she won't let the rain dictate her mood. In her mind, the street transforms into a red carpet, celebrating her greatness. And then, as if the universe is conspiring in her favor, there he is, Medaka, standing right in front of her. Fate? Coincidence? Who cares? What matters is that he's there. She walks up to him and, on impulse, grabs his arm. To her surprise, this time he doesn't put on that usual, unfriendly expression. He doesn't pull away. He even accepts the touch something unheard of. Medaka remembers his friend's words, dude, you can be nice without falling in love. Relax. With that in mind, he takes a deep breath and keeps walking beside her. Under the same umbrella, Mona decides to push the limits. She moves a little closer, using the excuse that this way he won't get wet. Medaka ends the ball with a single hand, saving Mona from a direct hit. Her heart skips a beat. Smitten? Maybe just a little. Asahi regains his composure and apologizes, but Mona takes part of the blame. Asahi nods, warning her that she's distracting everyone, and that if she wants to keep watching, she'd better do it from the stands. Before Mona can reply, one of Asahi's friends gives her a gentle nudge and murmurs something like, "Be nicer to the upperclassmen, okay?" Mona just smiles. That rainy day, which had seemed, Mona gives an awkward smile and raises her hands in surrender. "It's all good, you're right," she says, apologizing. But deep down, she realizes that while Asahi might be great at basketball there, before things escalate. "Let's go, Medaka." Before she can take a step, she feels a grip on her arm. Asahi holds on tight and pulls her aside without the slightest hesitation. "I want to talk to you." With no chance to refuse, Mona finds herself being dragged to a corner. And then, out of nowhere, comes the blunt question. "Do you and him have something going on?" Mona blinks, surprised. "What? Me and Medaka? We're just classmates." Asahi crosses her arms and raises an eyebrow. "Really? Because you walked into the gym with him this morning, didn't you? And under a single umbrella, right?" "Yes," Mona replies, already sensing where this is going. "So stop stalling and just say, are you two dating or not?" Mona instantly turns red, laughing awkwardly. "No, of course not." But Asahi isn't convinced. "Impossible. I would never share an umbrella with a guy unless he was my boyfriend." Before the conversation could go any further, Asahi's friends show up and practically drag her away, realizing she was getting a little too intense. After all that, on the way, she throws a question into the air. "Do you know that first-year girl?" He shrugs. "I don't even know which one was the first year." And that's when Mona realizes Medaka has no idea who Asahi is. That can only mean one thing. That girl likes him. Why else would she be so interested in their relationship? Mona furrows her brows. Until now, she was the only one keeping an eye on him, but now, Asahi might be a problem. In class, while Haruno snaps a few pictures of Mona, she takes the chance to ask, "Do you know Asahi?" Haruno nods without hesitation. Of course, she's one of the basketball club's top players. Soon, other girls join the conversation. "Yeah, we went to cheer for her at the last game. She's incredible, super talented, and one of the best students in the first year." So, besides being good at basketball and smart, Asahi also has a fan club? This was definitely not a good sign. If that girl really falls for Medaka, things are going to get complicated. But is that really the case? Mona isn't sure yet. As she's lost in thought, a boy appears at the door. "Mona, someone's here to see you." Her heart skips a beat. Maybe it's Medaka asking her to go somewhere? With an excited smile, she gets up and heads to the door. Except that's when everything changes. Asahi, who had been firm and confident just moments ago, turns red instant redder than a ripe tomato. Mona can hardly believe what she's seeing. Medaka looks at her for a moment, and then something finally seems to click for him. "Oh, you're the basketball girl, right? You did well this morning." Asahi freezes, literally. She loses her breath, loses the strength in her legs, and sudden poof, she clearly shouldn't have fallen. Ends up in plain sight for everyone to see. Mona's eyes widen. Now what? Medaka tries to act natural, pretending he didn't see anything. But Dola is right there, watching the scene like it's the greatest show on earth, while Mona realizes the situation is spiraling out of control, and the in her gaze, and says, without hesitation, "I'm not going to lose." And just like that, the war was declared. The next day, Mona is still processing everything that happened. At 17 years old and used to now, there's Asahi again, lurking around the school like she's hunting someone. Mona already knows exactly and thinks to herself, yesterday, it was the underwear incident, and now this embarrassment. This girl has no limits. Medaka, on the other hand, is desperately trying to clear his mind of any impure thoughts. A simple Asahi is not enjoying this scene one bit. The bell rings, and Medaka, always practical, says, "You should get to class before you're late." Completely flustered, Asahi says goodbye in the weirdest way, and waddles off like a penguin. Mona watches, intrigued. Is she always like this when she flirts? In class, Mona notices something troubling. Medaka is starting to remember that girl's name. He even recognized her. This is not good. If he starts getting interested in this type of girl cold one second, clingy the next, it'll be tough for Mona. Just when things were going so well. Meanwhile, Asahi isn't wasting any time passing around a not-so-appropriate photo. Asahi sees it and wrinkles her nose in disgust. But her friend just shrugs. Guys like that stuff. It doesn't show everything, but it's sexy enough. That gets Asahi thinking. During PE class, Mona switches into full and isn't around at the moment. As for Medaka, well, he's playing too, inching closer and closer, pretending she's just helping. But in reality, the whole thing is turning into a full-on grind festone that only she seems to be enjoying. Medaka, poor guy, has no idea where to look anymore. And just when things start heating up for real, Asahi shows up out of nowhere. "What the hell are you two doing?" Mona jumps back like she just got caught committing a crime. "I was just helping him." Asahi crosses her arms, unimpressed. "Uh-huh, sure. Pretty obvious you like him." Mona panics and rushes to shut her up before she can say anything else. But Asahi doesn't let up. stop. Why the hell would you be all over a guy like that if you don't like him? I was just teaching him. Perfect. Asahi smirks, her eyes gleaming with challenge. Then I can teach him too. Without missing a beat, she drops to the floor and calls Medaka over. You need to strengthen your core. Let's do some planks. Medaka, still dazed, agrees. But the moment he gets into position, he notices something's off. He swallows hard. Her posture, the way she's positioned right in front of him, something about this feels dangerous. Mona sees him freeze, and when she looks over to check what's going on, she immediately understands that little Asahi is playing the same game, except with slightly bolder moves. Medaka tries to stay focused, clear mind, no impure thoughts. But then Asahi lands the final blow. With a dangerously sweet look, she leans in and whispers, Medaka, don't you like the smaller girls? Boom. That's all it takes for the guy to short circuit and bolt out of there like his life depends on it. Mona and Asahi keep staring each other down, still locked in their silent battle. But when class ends, Mona can hardly believe what she just did. She went too far. And Medaka? He's probably out there praying to cleanse his soul. Unsure of what else to do, Mona does what any reasonable is only just beginning.